Welcome to the BuildASoil Family Farms YouTube series. I'd like to give everyone an update today on how everything's going in here in the 10 by 10. Since we were here last, Jeremy and I had left town. We went to New Mexico to an event, and if you can see over here, we have our brandy wine tomato starts. They're all looking really, really good. But one of the things that you can tell, we have some yellowing in the leaves. And that's kind of what everything looked like when I came back. We've had some new employees in that process that we're training for the summer. And some things got overwatered, and that was tried to get corrected by some underwatering, but it's okay. You know, with these plants, when they got overwatered and then underwatered, they got locked out of some nutrients. When they are small like this, you have plenty of opportunity to maybe feed them or do whatever it takes to get them back to full health. If your plant's not taking up nutrients, or maybe it's locked out because it's been overwatered, I really love foliar sprays. They're super important in your garden, but they can also be really useful for when you want to feed a plant or get it some sort of nutrient without having to put it in the soil and maybe wait for a couple days for it to take up that nutrient and see a difference. One of the things I also love about foliar sprays is the fact that you see almost immediate results. It's like the next day you're like, oh wow, you know, the plant was able to make use of whatever you gave them. Let me share with you what I ended up giving the plants here. Since everything had been overwatered, the next person that came in thought, you know what, we got to let these dry out, they're too wet. And then by Monday morning, with the amount of heat that we have in here, everything was too dry and it had pretty much flopped over.
She was a little bit upset, I'm not gonna lie. They're like her babies. And she came in and they were crying, right? They didn't know exactly what to give them.
Let me touch on that first. So basically, when you have a whole tray of plants, you can't treat this one tray like it's one plant, because it's not. There's 18 cells in here and each plant is different. We have some moist plants, and you can see some here are dry. And you can see that by the darker color on top of the soil here and the lighter color on top of the soil here. You can't go in and just maybe put a bunch of water on all of them. You have to treat every single plant like it's an individual. And for a new grower too, it's like it might be hard to know if something's too wet or too dry. And that, I think, is something you learn over time with gardening. There's just so many different ways. There's density of the tray, there's the color of the soil, there's the way the plant looks, there's just many different ways.
I've seen you even like rip out one plant and feel it versus the other if the whole tray feels like it.
Individual plant, and I can see, okay, this thing's feeling kind of light, but I'm pretty sure if I grabbed one that had darker colored soil, it's gonna feel a lot heavier. I think that's the hardest thing to transfer knowledge to other people is watering. It's one of the biggest difficulties when you're working with other people, and maybe you're going to leave your stuff to other people to take care of. Watering is the hardest thing to learn for yourself and to teach other people. It can be finicky, so
experience. You pop a whole bunch of seeds and then just take that soil that you don't use and dump it back into your soil pile, and you'll get to reuse it. You don't have to throw it away. And that experience from doing thousands of seeds, hundreds of seeds, instead of planting 3 seeds a year, right? I mean, you just don't learn that quickly doing it that way. And you see more of the weirdness that can come out of genetics, and you learn how to deal with them. You'll try something that doesn't work, you'll try something that does work, and you'll learn.
Trial and error.
So show us exactly what you did so they know.
Okay, so nitrogen usually fixes a lot of issues in your garden. You can definitely overdo the nitrogen, but when plants are struggling and they need food and nutrients, are not able to take it up, my go-to product is a nitrogen source product. Then I've talked about this before. We have the aloe. Aloe is one of the most important.
So we try not to like put all these claims on the label about exactly what's in aloe, but what you can do is look up the aloe plant. There's thousands of medicinal uses, and those translate over to the plant world just like they do to the human world. But the other thing I'll touch on is you mentioned a nitrogen source. When we're talking living soil, a lot of organic growers think nitrogen is like a dirty word. They don't want to hear about it. It sounds like fertilizer. What we're looking at is not really nitrogen. Now, the way we get it normally is like seed meal or our craft blend or our compost. It's kind of slow release, but when there's an emergency, you need a tool that's going to get the job done. And across all different types of plants in a living soil, some need more than others. Because the way I like to think about it is there's this biological community in the soil. It's delivering the nutrients to the plant. The plant's working in concert. And when all the things get clogged up, it's like there's no heat, no energy in there. This is like the lighter fluid. It may not be necessary to keep it up, but it like kickstarts the reaction
again. It's like a protein
again.
shake before you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like you can go on an empty stomach and be like, all right, drag through your workout, but then you take up a big thing of protein and all of a sudden you're feeling full and your body can utilize that.
It's not
energy.
the steak, it's the protein. It's micronized, it's freeze dried. And the 1511 is basically almost all aminos. I think it's like 90-something% amino acids. Just so you know, nitrogen's a big long chain. Aminos are each link. It's the easiest for the plant to use immediately. So that's why she sees such quick results with it.
Yeah, I'd like to mention too, like during this series, you're gonna hear me kind of go like, well, I don't know, I just really like this product. And Jeremy's like, well, it has like this and this and this in it. And basically that's how I've learned how to use a lot of the products here, what I like and what works and what doesn't work, is I've just used them.
I love
and
it.
one of the things that I love is seeing results. And so if I can put something on a plant or in the soil and I see results from it and they're beneficial results, then immediately I love that product.
It's really pure too, because if I tell her, hey, we got this new product, and she tries it and she doesn't like it, she's like, well, I don't care, I'm never gonna use it, I don't like it. And I kind of like, well, crap. And then if I give her something and she likes it, it's not like she's like, oh yeah, it's a 1511, it's gonna do this. And she has this predictive quality. She just goes, oh, I'll use it. And then she tells me exactly what happened. And that's like such an honest opinion for me, because she's my wife, she'll tell me exactly how it is. And if she likes it, I know it's probably gonna do well here, so.
Yeah, a lot of my gardening is intuitive based, but he can definitely get really
geek out on it.
nerdy on things, and I'm more or less like, do my plants like it? Do they not like it? Anyways, that's enough. Okay, so I didn't go heavy. I wanted to say that I didn't want to just blast them with a whole bunch of things. A teaspoon per gallon of this. I used a half a teaspoon per gallon of the aloe, and then of course I used the wetting agent.
Like a sprinkle?
Like less than a fourth of a teaspoon is what I used per gallon for this. Quick example of how I did this, because it's really important when you have this many plants, like I said, to pay attention to each individual plant. So let me grab you my first tray that I'm going to show you here. So I go in order, so that way I don't miss anything. We have 1,500 plants in here, and I want to make sure I pay attention to every single plant on every single tray, especially when I'm trying to help them out after a rough couple days. I water everything in order. So over here, I'll bring my tray and I set it down under the light. I'm able to look now at every single plant here. I can see I have some that are moist, some that are dry. Although everything was pretty dry when I came in, so I gave them a decent amount of water here. But as I'm watering, I was hitting all these plants up top with a foliar spray so that they were able to take some of those aminos and use them as needed to help bring them back to life, basically. When you foliar spray things, I think it's really important if you're going for like pests, you're gonna wanna do like a thorough spray under your leaves, on top, you know, soak them real good and make sure you get everything. I basically just hit them with the product as I was watering in the soil. Then the next thing that I did was turn all the lights down. So when you foliar spray, it's really easy to burn your plants, and the light, I think, magnifies whatever you put on there. It makes it really hot, and it can burn them and really hurt them. So as I did that, every plant got what they needed. I came in and I took my lights and I just turned them down pretty low. This way, in my mind, it's like the way it works is everything underneath here is able to kind of like figure out what it's doing, take its time, and either take up the nutrients or use the water or whatever it's trying to do. It's just not forcing it to like be growing up.
If you come home and you've been gone for a couple days and you're like, oh my God, my plants are underwatered or they're not happy, immediately dim the light if you have that ability, and let's get them just calm down. And what I mean by that is it's a marathon, and they're basically at like a 6 minute per mile pace. We're working them super hard. We're trying to like win the record. Well, if you notice that there's an issue, maybe you don't have to go full speed now. Let's slow down a little bit. Let's address the concern and let's get it ramped up healthily back to full speed. If we just keep it at full speed and say, you've been out of water, cram 7 Gatorades in a row and keep running full speed, I just feel like, yeah, it's a recipe for disaster.
When you're injured, you go lay in bed, you turn the lights down, you rest, you relax.
That's that intuitive sense that she talks about. Like, treat these like they're little babies that need that love.
Let me show you real quick. I have been watering with this chapin. It's 3.5 gallons. Right now, today, we just have water. Okay. So when we planted them, we gave them root wise and aloe and some wetting agent. We've used the wetting agent for like every other water. Every now and then, if I feel like they're too dry, I'll give them a little of the Kiwaha, but mostly just water. Because if I was to just be like every day going, let me give them some aminos or let me do this, even though I love doing that every day, it's just not good for your little babies. It's too much.
We just want to keep them healthy. We don't need to like More is not always better. In soil, less is more. But discipline and consistency, that's important.
And I try to mention that for watering, less is actually more. And so we don't come in the morning and just fill up the trays and let them soak overnight till the next day. They get 3 little amounts of water a day. That way they can use what they need as they need it. I can't force them to do anything, so.
In a commercial greenhouse, they'd have like a mister above and would run several times per day, giving them either just plain water or nutrients. That can be problematic too. So I feel like we're kind of lucky to not have a million where we can still do a lot of this hand watering stuff, and it allows us to teach you probably how you're gonna do it in your garage when you're getting ready for the season.
If you're doing like a big commercial grow and there's literally millions of plants, what they have the ability to do is get rid of the ones that didn't get enough water during that, or overwatered, or like whatever it may be. And so they've got millions going, and then they can just weed out the bad ones. I personally want every single plant in here to thrive and survive and be as healthy as possible. Every single one of them needs to live. So let me show you real quick how I water. We've got, you can see a little bit darker color soil here, here, and here. That means that these already have water. I'm not gonna go give them any water at all. I do see, however, one here that looks a little bit dry. You can always put your finger down in there and feel it. I can feel it's damp, but it's definitely not enough water for the plant to take up. And I've got another dry one here. So all I'm gonna do for today, because I'm gonna be back at lunch to check them, is just soak in a little bit of water for each plant. As you can see, the water just went straight down. So that means the soil underneath is not hydrophobic. It was literally just went straight down, and the roots are able to take up that water. If it was bone dry, like really, really dry, the water isn't just gonna immediately soak down like that. Yeah. You'll see it kind of pull up and then shoot out the sides and go down the side, and now the roots in the middle don't really have anything. So
no, are you gonna thin these out as well?
You can see here, there's 2 coming out of some of them. This is actually one of the only trays in here I haven't worked on. I like to go ahead and snip them. I think when the plants are about this big, these roots are more or less connected and intertwined with each other. So if I just yank it out, I'm probably gonna damage the roots from the plant that I wanna keep. And at this point, I'm just gonna use my snippers. The way I make this decision here is I'll pull them apart. And so all I do is find the little stem here and take that out. Now this plant's leaning, right? So I'm just gonna take it, put a little soil up here, and just tuck it in nicely.
In the beginning, if there was any cells that didn't have germination, you would take them when they were younger and like pull it out and put it in the other one. So then we'd have 100%. And now that we have 100%, all the cells are basically full or close to it.
So even here again, I've got these 2. This one looks more uniform and the color is really nice. This one is missing a leaf on this side, so I'm just gonna take the one that I think looks the best. I think when they're both kind of healthy like that, it doesn't matter. Once you take one out, the one that's left is gonna thrive, so that's okay. And then there we go. We'll show you this again, definitely. We're gonna be popping more seeds. This is only the first round.
This series, this is just us documenting what goes on the day-to-day, what we can show you, and give you a glimpse into our world. As we get better at this, we hope to make it a little more cohesive, but starting early in the season, you're gonna catch a lot of what it takes to get the whole farm running.
Yeah, and how much work it takes. We only have 3 employees. It can be a lot of work. You're running back and forth between the greenhouse and the 10x10, and then you gotta come in, spend 2 hours in the morning watering plants. It's a lot, but it's so rewarding and we have a lot of fun with it. I wanted to show everyone our trays that we have going. Anything that's going in the greenhouse, I put into a 50 cell tray. And you can see here that they grow up a lot taller than say something over here who has more space to go wide. So we have so many varieties in here. One of the things I do every morning is open my little window before I even step in the 10x10, and I like to just kind of peek at everything. And they're all different genetics. And so you're gonna see different characteristic traits out of each different tomato. One of the ones that's standing out to me the most is I've never grown a brandywine variety before, and I've heard a lot of things about like potato leaf varieties in plants. This here's the perfect example. These leaves look just like a potato leaf when it grows out of the ground. So the brandywine has a really different shaped leaf than say this Marvori over here, which is a white heirloom tomato. So far, these genetics, yeah, tomato leaf versus the potato. Potato.
They're both nightshade.
They're so good. We had tomatoes last night. It was like looked like a black crim or something, and it was just making me so excited to to get the season rolling. So okay, so we have the potato leaf. I'm really loving this plant. It's like fat and healthy and amazing. This is a really rare heirloom tomato. It's a white one. These genetics obviously are very strong because they haven't faltered. We have this one particular tomato. I tried growing it 2 years ago. It's called the Amish paste. So if you look at these tomatoes, be like, man, those look really floppy and skinny and kind of just sad, right? This is actually their genetics. So the first year I grew them, I felt like they were all just trying to die all the time. But now that I'm growing them again with a large amount of them, I can see that this is the genetics. This is the way that this tomato grows. And so I don't think it's gonna matter what I do. I could throw aminos on it all day long and be root wising and doing all the things, but this is the way this plant's gonna look. So you can't be always discouraged too. Sometimes you really gotta look and research your genetics and that way you can see whether you're doing well or not. This is a beefsteak tomato, so you can see they're very big, green, fat leaves. And then one more I wanted to show you real quick. Where is it? This one, it's a Tasmanian chocolate. So we'll get more into this, but we have determinate plants and then we have indeterminate plants. This is a determinate. A determinate plant is only gonna get a certain height and size, and the indeterminate plant, you can grow it as tall as you possibly can. Literally grow it for probably like a year if you wanted to. If you had the right conditions, you just keep it going and going and going. Not that that would be ideal.
Tomatoes are a weird one. I think they're a 2-year plant. I think they're truly a biennial, although we treat them like annuals. I'll have to look it up. I could be totally wrong. Yeah. If anybody knows, write in here. I don't know what plant you grow for 2 years. It seems really strange to me.
I would do it.
Right? But I know the world record tomato guy uses the indeterminates because he grows them so tall. And that's what we grow in our greenhouse. But some people want like a nice bush tomato that's manageable.
But you could really see the difference here between like this and this, right? They're not super tall and they're actually almost bushing out from the very beginning. So I find that to be super interesting. Anyways, that's been fun for me. All right, we'll head over to the greenhouse and show you what we've got going on over there before we plant our tomatoes.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go over there.
All right, so we're over here at the greenhouse. We're gonna just run through real quick some of the things that we're gonna be doing to get ready for all the tomatoes you just saw in the 10 by 10. Come on in. Everything's looking pretty good. We've still got our salad mix. Last time you saw it, it was a lot smaller than this. One of the things that we have to do to get ready for summer is prep our beds for our tomatoes. If you can see here, we've tilled up these beds. They were gonna be salad mix, but we don't have enough time to wait for them to grow up before we put the tomatoes. I'm going to plant the tomatoes about 2 weeks earlier than I was going to. I did a little bit of research and I found that my soil temps don't have to be perfect. My overhead temps is what really matters. And because we have the ability to heat our greenhouse, I can go ahead and throw on a heater during the nighttime and keep it warm at night. The sun's gonna do the rest for us during the daytime, but that way I can be the first person to have tomatoes to the market.
Lettuce, this was a lot smaller. I think that was only a couple weeks ago. It grows really fast. During the winter, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for it to grow up before we can harvest it. In the summer, it's like 4 weeks and you're already harvesting the lettuce. 1 more week till you can practically harvest it again. But I'm more excited about the tomatoes. I know she is. They're gonna be literally on all these strings up here completely to the ceiling. So it'll be pretty cool. You mentioned tilting.
I'll touch real quick on that and eventually we'll show you what it is. But as we've mentioned before, this is a no-till farm. So when we say tilling, it's a lot different than tilling. Usually your tiller is gonna go 6 inches or more below the surface. And with a tiller, we're just basically turning over and mixing in nutrients or whatever we've left to compost on top of the bed into the soil. It's a mixing method. It's not necessarily tilling anything.
Yeah, like this far down. Look at the results. I mean, these are uniform beds for commercial production. You have to have high plant density. They have to be healthy.
The next thing we're gonna be doing is pulling up these beds and clearing all this out so that we can bring all our tomatoes over and plant them in the same day.
Have we already put the craft blend and stuff in these beds?
No, we haven't amended the beds. No craft blend, which is what we've told you we use. When we amend, we do 15 pounds of craft blend per 50 row foot of beds. It's a whole process. I can't wait to show you. As I mentioned before, these are kind of our experimental beds back here. Here we have radishes. We've been working with our cedar. As you can see, they're not perfectly spaced. These are our radishes. I would like to show you, we have this one here. This is the problem we've been having. I suspect it's a mouse. Some of the other employees think that maybe it's roly-polies, pill bugs. I'm not sure. I've actually thought about putting a trail cam up here because I want to know what's eating my radishes. Because when I harvest them and I have to throw half the harvest away because there's little bite marks in all of them, I'm not going to send those off to chefs. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So this is above ground. the soil was about up to here. My suspicion is that there's a little mouse or something that's coming in and it'll just take little bites out of my radishes, but I'm not gonna send this off to a chef. I want it to be perfect. Even though I'm probably gonna take this home, I'll eat it, that's no big deal. I've plugged every hole in the greenhouse. I mean, everything's secure. I just don't know what keeps doing this.
I wonder if flea beetles could be doing it. Because we have bad flea beetles out here in Montrose. I don't know if they only eat the leaf, because I'm not an expert on flea beetles, but let's go look it up together and maybe we'll address it on the next video.
That'd be great, yeah. So as we get ready for the tomatoes this year, we'll be making sure to thoroughly clean everything. I love radishes. Like I said, I wouldn't send this off to a chef because it's not perfect, but man, it tastes so good. It's spicy, really good on tacos. But one of my favorite things to do in the summertime is just walk through the greenhouse and eat food. It's really wonderful.
During winter, it's much cooler on this side because of the way the sun goes. So it's really nice over here, and the lettuce likes the cool weather.
Lettuce really likes cool weather. So one of the things about this lettuce that has impressed me the most, whenever I drop it off to a customer in town, it's so awesome to hear them say, how on earth did you grow this outside in the summertime? And I've talked about this before, but the genetics are really, really important. So when I found this salad mix in particular, I loved it because it's slow to bolt, even outside in the sun. Even if they don't get all the water they need, they have so much turgor, you see so much color, and they don't bolt.
What's bolting? I know we're trying to end the episode, but real quick.
So actually it's when the plant not just jumps up in height, but it's trying to flower. So it's too hot, it's totally stressed out, and now it wants to throw out seeds so it can reproduce just like everything else in the world. It wants to survive, but the only way for it to do that is to produce seed, drop it on the ground, and have more grow. In the summertime, if the conditions aren't ideal, or if say your genetics don't work well with your climate and your conditions, you're gonna see bolting, and that right there is gonna be a little flower that basically comes right out of the middle. When that happens, the salad mix becomes bitter.
And you can do the same when you grow at home. You can treat them a lot more gentle, not harvest them as often, as your lettuce can live around the whole season and you can eat off of it the whole year. So we'll talk about the home grow versus the commercial grow, but this one works well in the greenhouse, outside.
Well, thanks for watching our YouTube series today. This was episode 2. Things are gonna get much more busy, so I'll have so much content to share with you. If you have suggestions or questions, go ahead and drop a comment down the bottom. I love reading through the comments and answering questions and even hearing what anybody else has experienced in their garden. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.